My husband announced at our Thanksgiving dinner, "I'm selling the house. My girlfriend needs somewhere bigger for her kids." Our adult children sat stunned as he detailed his new life, as if he were reading a script he'd rehearsed 1,000 times. And even though my heartbeat thundered in my ears, I kept my face completely still. Because unlike him, I had come prepared. Thanksgiving had always been my favorite holiday. The smell of sage and butter drifting through the kitchen, the soft hum of family laughter, the joy of seeing my children, Hunter in his crisp suit jacket and Faith waving wine bottles like party favors. I had spent the whole week perfecting every detail, the turkey roasted since dawn, Grandma's china polished until it shone, the centerpiece arranged like something out of a magazine. But Taylor walked past all of it without a single comment. He barely tore his eyes away from the phone that had buzzed 7 times that morning, each buzz lighting up his face in a way I hadn't seen in months. Not for me, not for our family, for her. Still, I smiled, carving turkey, serving stuffing, pretending everything was normal, pretending I hadn't seen the cracks forming for nearly a year. Before we go deeper, thank you for being here. If you believe no woman should ever feel powerless in her own home, hit subscribe. It's free and helps us reach others who need strength, not silence. Taylor cleared his throat then, his signal. The one he always used before breaking news he knew would hurt someone. He pushed his chair back, stood too straight, puffed his chest the way he did in business meetings. And then he delivered his final blow. Holly's kids need more space. Jack is 8, Joel is 6, and little Elise just turned 4. They need a real home, and this house sells fast in this market. Faith froze mid-sip, her wine glass trembling. Hunter's fork fell onto his plate with a loud clatter. The silence was sharp, painful. And then he said it, calmly, shamelessly, like it was nothing at all. "Holly's my girlfriend. We've been together 8 months. My fingers didn't shake. My breath didn't hitch. Instead, I stood up quietly, walked to the kitchen counter, and reached into my purse. The envelope had been waiting there for 3 long weeks. I'd carried it everywhere, in grocery stores, in the car, even while folding laundry, because I knew a day like this was coming. I returned to the table, placed the envelope right on top of the gravy stain he'd made during his little speech, and looked straight into his eyes for the first time that evening. "Since you're making announcements," I said calmly, "here's mine." Then I sat down and took a bite of sweet potato casserole, slowly, deliberately, as the envelope sat between us like a ticking bomb. Taylor's fingers hovered over the envelope as if touching it might burn him. The same man who just declared our home available for liquidation now looked like a child afraid of the dark. His thumb traced the seal, his jaw working back and forth like he was chewing on regret he wasn't ready to swallow. For a moment, he looked up at Hunter, as if hoping for rescue, but our son's eyes had gone cold, a mirror of the betrayal he felt. Faith was staring too, confusion and heartbreak swirling in her expression. She opened her mouth once, closed it again, then whispered, "Mom, what's going on?" I squeezed her hand. "Nothing you need to worry about, sweetheart." I said it softly, gently, yet my gaze remained locked on Taylor. He finally slipped the envelope into his jacket pocket, too cowardly to open it, too terrified to put it down. A temporary delay. A last gasp of control. He cleared his throat again. "Jordan, we should talk." I cut another piece of turkey, my voice calm and cool. "We really shouldn't." Faith leaned back in her chair, eyes wet. "Dad, how long? How long have you been cheating on Mom?" Taylor flinched, the question slicing deeper than my envelope ever could. "It's not, Faith, you don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," she snapped, voice trembling. "You destroyed our family for some woman with kids. Kids you treat better than your own." Hunter stood abruptly. "I've lost my appetite." And with that, he walked out, his footsteps heavy, his door slamming upstairs like a final verdict. Taylor looked shattered, but only for a moment. Then his phone buzzed again. Holly's name lit up the screen in bold letters, glowing like an exposed nerve. He silenced it quickly, muttering, "It's work." Faith actually laughed, a bitter, Humorless sound. At 7 p.m. on Thanksgiving? Right. The phone buzzed a second time. A third. A fourth. Each buzz louder than words, revealing exactly where Taylor's loyalty lived now. Go ahead, I said coolly. Answer it. He looked cornered. Jordan, don't let us interrupt your priorities. His mask cracked then, anger, guilt, frustration bleeding through. He pressed decline again, knuckles whitening. I continued eating, each bite intentional, calm, unbothered. Rage, I had learned, was loud. Power, however, was silent. Finally, Faith whispered, I need air. She stood, her hand trembling as she set down her glass. She looked at me, asking silently if I was okay. I nodded. Go on, sweetheart. I've got this. And she left, shoulders shaking as she walked out the front door. Now it was just Taylor and me. The man who once promised me forever. The man now acting like forever was an inconvenience. He tried again. Jordan, please. We need to talk about everything. Holly and I, Holly and you? I repeated, eyebrow arching. Oh, we'll get to that. His eyes flicked to his pocket again, to the envelope burning a hole in his jacket. He still wouldn't open it. That told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't ready. Not for the truth. Not for the consequences. Not for the war he'd unknowingly started. I picked up the dishes one by one, stacking them neatly. Dinner's over, Taylor. So is your illusion of control. The rest of Thanksgiving night passed like a ghost drifting through the house, silent, heavy, and unforgettable. I went to bed early, locking the bedroom door behind me, something I'd never done in 23 years of marriage. Downstairs, I could hear Taylor pacing, opening drawers, closing them again, stopping, starting, as if his guilt, his fear, and that envelope were chasing him from room to room. Let them chase him. Let him feel hunted for once. I slid into bed and slept better than I had in months. The next morning, the house felt strangely peaceful. A calm before a storm only he didn't know was already brewing. I made coffee, the aroma filling the kitchen, the same way it had for 2 decades. Only this time, there was no waiting for him. No checking my phone. No adjusting my mood to his schedule. Just me, and my decision. By the time Taylor came downstairs, he looked like he hadn't slept at all. His eyes were red-rimmed, his shoulders slumped, his shirt wrinkled. He wasn't the polished businessman announcing a new life plan over Thanksgiving dinner anymore. He looked like a man standing at the edge of a cliff and realizing he'd built the drop himself. Jordan, his voice cracked. What is this? What did you give me? I flipped a pancake with calm precision. Open it and find out. He tore into the envelope slowly, each rip sounding louder in the quiet kitchen. Paper unfolded. Silence thickened. And then, his breath hitched. His face was drained of color. You transferred the deed? I finally turned toward him. 3 months ago, I said lightly, as if discussing the weather. You'd be surprised how much paperwork goes unnoticed when you're busy pretending to work late. He stared at the documents, proof that the home he planned to sell for his girlfriend's comfort was publicly, legally, undeniably mine. Purchased under a marital clause he'd forgotten existed. Updated by signatures he never questioned. Secured by an attorney he'd never imagined I would hire. You set me up, he hissed, anger returning in a last attempt at power. No, I said, pouring myself more coffee, I protected myself. There's a difference. His phone buzzed. Loud. Insistent. Holly's name flashed across the screen like a warning siren. His shoulders tensed. He hesitated, caught between his crumbling marriage and the woman he destroyed it for. Go on, I said softly. She's waiting. He answered. Hey, babe. His voice was weak, nothing like the confident man who'd spoken so boldly yesterday. Holly's voice exploded through the speaker loud enough that I didn't need to hear the words to understand the tone. Sharp, furious, betrayed. "What do you mean?" Holly demanded. "The house isn't in your name. You promised me a home for my kids." Taylor's eyes shot to mine, desperate, pleading. I took a slow sip of coffee. There was a complication," he stammered. Her voice rose higher, fury turning every syllable into a dagger. "You told me you owned that house. Taylor, my children are expecting new rooms. We have furniture picked out. Are you telling me you can't provide anything you promised?" Taylor opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Holly ended the call violently. The silence afterward was worse than the shouting. She hung up, Taylor whispered. I smiled. "Actions have consequences, sweetheart. Isn't that what you always told the kids?" He sank into a chair, shell-shocked. For the first time, I watched him confront the reality he had built with his own hands. And I knew, this was only the beginning. Taylor spent the rest of that morning wandering the house like a man trying to recognize the ruins of a life he thought he controlled. I watched him from the kitchen window as he stood in the doorway of his office, the office where he used to plan vacations, schedule meetings, and hide the truth behind long work nights. Now he simply stared at the empty desk like it was a tombstone. Maybe it was. The tombstone of the marriage he'd taken for granted. By afternoon, he finally mustered the courage to speak again. "Jordan, please," he said, following me into the living room, "we can talk about this. We can figure something out." I folded a blanket on the couch with deliberate calmness. "Taylor, the only thing left to figure out is how long you're staying here before you move into your new life." He winced, actually winced, as if my words were a slap. "Oh, the irony. You're being cruel," he whispered. "I made a mistake, yes, but..." I cut him off with a soft laugh. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. You didn't make a mistake, Taylor. You made a whole new life behind my back. For 8 months." He closed his mouth, unable to argue because the truth sat between us like a third presence in the room. Later that evening, Faith and Hunter came by unannounced, stepping into the living room with a tension I could feel. They weren't here for dinner or laughter, they were here for answers, for closure, for clarity after the Thanksgiving ambush their father had dropped on them. "Dad," Hunter said flatly, "why are you still here? Didn't you say you had a new family to move in with?" Taylor's face twisted painfully. "It's not like that. Holly and I..." "We don't care about Holly," Faith snapped, voice trembling with anger she'd never used before. "We care about how you treated our mother." I watched Taylor's throat bob as he swallowed hard, realizing, for the first time, that his actions had wounded more than just me. He'd damaged his children, too. The 2 people he claimed to love most in the world. But he wasn't ready to accept that. Narcissists rarely are. "She's making it worse," he muttered, motioning toward me. Faith's eyebrows shot up. "No, Dad. Mom didn't destroy anything. You did." Taylor's anger cracked. His legs gave out, and he collapsed into the armchair like a man lost. His phone buzzed again. Holly. The name lit up like a neon reminder of everything he'd gambled and lost. He silenced it without answering this time. When the kids left, he approached me again, this time with a desperation that almost bordered on panic. "Jordan," he whispered, voice hollow, "what am I supposed to do now?" I met his eyes with steady resolve. "Whatever you want. But you're not doing it here." There it was. The line he couldn't cross again. The door he finally saw closing. He stood there, shattered, as if the weight of his choices had finally crashed down on him. It was strange, watching him struggle to breathe under consequences he never expected to face. For years, I had carried that weight alone. Now, he finally felt it too. Later that night, when he finally walked upstairs to pack a few things, the house felt lighter. As if it had been holding its breath, and finally exhaled. I sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, listening to him shuffle through drawers, open closets, and gather pieces of a life he had thrown away without hesitation. And for the first time since Thanksgiving, I felt something new. Not anger. Not heartbreak. Not even triumph. Peace. Taylor left the next morning with a single duffel bag slung over his shoulder, a far cry from the man who once insisted on monogrammed luggage for every family trip. He paused in the doorway, looking back at me like he expected something. Maybe a tearful goodbye. Maybe one last plea for him to stay. Maybe he thought the gravity of the moment would shatter me into pieces, and he'd get to play the rescuer one more time. Instead, I simply nodded toward the driveway. The world's waiting, Taylor. He swallowed, nodded tightly, and walked out. The door clicked shut behind him, and the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was expansive. Alive. It filled every corner of the house like sunlight finally penetrating a room that had been dim for far too long. By noon, word had traveled faster than gossip at a church picnic. My sister called, then my cousin, then Margaret from book club. Everyone had heard some version of the story. Husband leaves wife for younger woman, wife takes back the house, girlfriend dumps him, karma serves a full-course meal. But I didn't bother correcting or confirming anything. The truth was mine, and after months of lies, it felt sacred to keep parts of it private. What surprised me most was the way the house itself began to change after Taylor left. Rooms felt lighter. Colors looked warmer. Even the air seemed to move differently, as if it had been waiting for this shift. I cleaned out his office first, sweeping away years of dusty files, outdated gadgets, and empty promises. I boxed everything neatly, labeling each one with a sticky note: office, clothes, miscellaneous. Nothing dramatic. No smashing of photo frames. No ripping of shirts or burning of documents. That kind of chaos belonged to people who still cared. I was past that. 2 days later, I got a call that would change everything again. Jordan? Faith's voice crackled through the speaker, shaky but determined. Holly came to my workplace today. My heart thudded. She what? She cornered me in the parking lot. Said Dad told her you tricked him, that the house was supposed to be theirs, and you stole it. I closed my eyes and took a breath. Of course. Holly wasn't done. Women like her rarely let go of resources without a fight, even if those resources came in the form of another woman's home. What did you tell her? I asked. The truth, Faith said fiercely. I told her Dad lied to her, he lied to us, and if she wants stability, she should look for it somewhere other than a married man having a midlife crisis. A slow smile tugged at my lips. My daughter had grown steel bones through all of this. But Faith wasn't finished. She said something else, Mom. Something weird. She said Dad promised her financial support. Promised her he'd help with the kids' expenses every month. I turned toward the window, watching the autumn leaves drift across the yard. Of course he did, I murmured. And of course he can't deliver anymore. Faith hesitated. Are you okay? I looked around my home, the home I had saved, protected, reclaimed. Yes, I said softly. For the first time in a long time, I'm more than okay. That night, while the house settled into its new quiet rhythm, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Holly. I stared at the screen for a long moment. And then, I smiled. Because she had no idea that the real conversation, the one that would end everything she'd been planning, hadn't even begun yet. Holly's text sat on my screen like a dare. For a moment, I considered ignoring it entirely, letting her sit in the same uncertainty she and Taylor had put me through for months. But ignoring her wasn't necessary. Life had already begun delivering consequences neither of them were prepared for. Still, curiosity tugged at me, so the next morning, I agreed to meet her at a quiet coffee shop by the river. She arrived 10 minutes late, looking nothing like the polished, bright-eyed woman from her social media. Her hair was unkempt, her expression strained, and the confidence she once wore like perfume had evaporated into thin air. Thank you for meeting me, she said stiffly. I nodded, waiting. She didn't waste time. Taylor told me what you did. He said you tricked him, that you transferred the house out of his name behind his back. I didn't trick him, I replied calmly. I acted legally and transparently. If he didn't read the paperwork that crossed his desk, that's not deception, that's negligence. Her jaw tightened. He promised us a future, Jordan. A home, stability. My children are attached to him. I folded my hands. I understand the disappointment. But Taylor is a grown man who made choices. Every promise he made to you, he made without the right to offer it. Her expression shifted from anger to desperation. He said he can still fix it. He said. He can't. Those two words hung in the air between us. Final. Undeniable. Holly swallowed hard. But he said he's going to challenge the deed. You're welcome to encourage him, I said gently. His attorney can explain how airtight the documents are. And if they try to accuse me of fraud, Clayton would be thrilled. You'd lose faster than Taylor lost your wedding venue. The flash of shame on her face told me she hadn't expected me to know about that. Word travels quickly in a town like ours. She leaned back, defeated. I thought he loved me. I met her eyes, not with cruelty, but with a truth she needed to hear. Holly, men who love you don't require you to steal another woman's life to build your own. For a long moment, she just stared at me. Then, quietly, she gathered her purse and stood. I guess that's the answer I needed. She walked away without another word. As the door chimed behind her, I felt something deep inside settle. A closing. A release. That evening, Hunter and Faith came over for dinner. Laughter filled the house, real laughter, not the brittle kind that used to crumble under pressure. We ate in the dining room Taylor had once claimed he'd sell, and when I looked around at the people who mattered, I realized something profound. This home had never been about walls or deeds or market value. It had been about us. And now, it was finally safe again. Later that night, as I curled onto the couch with a blanket and a cup of tea, my phone buzzed. A message from Taylor. I lost everything today. I don't know what to do. I stared at it for a long moment, then turned off my phone. Some people fall apart so you can finally come together, with yourself. I took a deep breath, feeling peace settle over me like a warm quilt. I had it rebuilt. I had reclaimed. And I had won, not through revenge, but through choosing myself. If this story of sweet revenge had you on the edge of your seat, press that like button right now. My favorite part was when Jordan calmly handed Taylor that mysterious envelope at Thanksgiving dinner, knowing exactly what bombshell was inside. What was your favorite moment? Tell me in the comments below. Don't miss more thrilling stories of strength, justice, and emotional victory. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment.